where I am. So it's I get to be
Where?
an honorary cool kid today.
Well, you're always a cool kid.
What?
Yeah, don't you know?
You're friends with us, so you're
Okay.
automatically a cool kid.
Well, I guess that's how those things work. I'm honored because, the shy, introverted, like geeky high school version of me would be so proud right now to be a cool kid.
Oh my gosh.
I would have never
Aw.
pegged you as like the shy kid. Like you're so like in your element at like, in Vegas. So I would have never pegged you as the shy
He's just
kid.
so cool. He's so cool, calm, collected. Like
Yeah.
just, I get it now, and I know now where that comes from.
Well,
A little
yeah.
bit.
So
I have some insight.
and
Please share.
well, I was going to say it's interesting, and I feel like, Carmi, you're at a slight disadvantage in these conversations because obviously Doll has
Yeah, a
read the
little
book and has all of the insights. Which, by the way, I will send you if you want to read it. I'll send you a copy.
Please.
Is it done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
no,
not
it's
done.
not.
No,
Is it
no.
finalized?
So
Okay, we'll get into it after. Okay.
Yeah. But it's interesting because of all those experiences and all of that, all of the the trajectory of my life in the past 15 years or so is, I think what it is just being super comfortable knowing that I can hold my own in any conversation. So it doesn't really
Oh, yeah.
like when I'm at, RCS or any other social event, like I'll admit, like I still get, and it's weird now at RCS because you walk into like the grand dining room where all the people are.
Yeah.
And like, you're going to see people that you've seen in prior years and friends and whatnot. But there's still little nerves going into something like that because there's just so much unfamiliarity and unknown and new stuff. But like the moment I start talking to somebody, then it's just like it clicks and I'm like, all right, I'm good.
That's
Yeah,
awesome because a
yeah,
lot of
no.
people spend their whole adult life like trying to get to that point because a lot of time is spent in our heads as adults.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. Like, when did that transition?
Well, let's intro Alex, Carmi, and then let's get into this because we're going deep, like right now.
I know, like out the gate, like we didn't even like mess around with any like squirrel brain antics, like just
I
in.
know. We'll get there. We'll get there. All right. We'll get
All
there.
right, you
okay?
guys. Well, welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Cycle, Redefining Weight Loss, Health, and Mom Life. And today we have our friend, fellow coach, Alex McBrairty. He's in with the cool kids. So, Alex, let's start
Hey.
off with tell our audience who you are, what makes you relevant. Just kidding.
Yeah, right. And what makes you? Because I mean,
we know why we're
we need
relevant.
the
What makes
relevance
you
part.
relevant?
Well,
Just kidding. No,
so-
tell us your story. What got you in the industry? What brought you here? And anything that you want the audience to know about you. And we do also have something else to talk about that we'll intro or we'll get into a little bit later. So first, start off with an
Yeah.
intro about yourself.
Yeah, fair. Okay, I do. I will. I'll wait till later, but I got to make a joke about being relevant and being on the podcast, which will come up. But
What, that you're a white male, 30s? No I'm kidding.
Down out the gate.
I'm
Rein it
just
in.
clearly I'm using all the privilege that I have to get on the podcast. Obviously.
I don't know. Is it a privilege anymore? No, just kidding.
So, all right, about
You're
me,
so
which
worse.
is always an
Okay,
interesting
let's go.
question now. Carmen, you kind of alluded to
Yes.
this, like what, the trajectory of my life, what has led to a lot of who I am today, which is interesting because, I think in looking back as life goes on, we all tend to look, and I know this is a long-winded answer for this, but we all look at the chapters of
No,
our
go for
life,
it.
and there's sort of
Yes.
different versions of us in each of those chapters. And mine has been sort of such an overhaul over the past 15 years that when I'm asked the question of like, how did I get into coaching and who I am, I obviously have that story, which I'll share. But it's interesting to think about because that, like those different chaptered versions of me don't quite feel like me anymore because it's so different to who I am fundamentally now as a person. And in some cases, I'll admit to my detriment because you guys both know I live in New Jersey now, but I'm originally from Michigan. And I've been in New Jersey for about 3 years, spent 30 years in Michigan, and everyone in Michigan knew both sides of me. Now I'm going to lead into my story, which is I was the overweight kid growing up. I was the shy, kind of awkward, very low self-confidence, low self-esteem, sort of always kept to myself kid because of that weight loss struggles. And it's kind of a chicken and the egg problem, right? Is I was that way because I was overweight, and I was also overweight because I was that way and turned to food for a lot of things and and whatnot. And so my senior year in high school, I lost 86 pounds over the course of that
Oh, wow.
year.
Yeah.
And I will uh, explain that as it became a full-time job at that point. I mean, I was either at school, I was either at my part-time job that I had, or I was working out. And I was working out 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times a day. Just like I pretty much
That's
shed
nuts.
a lot of my social life at that point. Which becomes relevant later with in terms of like the friends that I had at the time and then no longer had. And it was like full commitment, full transformation. I'm doing this thing. And admittedly, very extreme. Probably don't recommend that to
Yeah.
most people to do
Mm.
it that way. And I was also in a
Mhm.
position to be able to do that. I mean, I was 17 years old. I was still living at home. I had a job. Like I didn't
And
have bills to pay.
what did you know too either, right? Like extreme now looking back, or did you know you were doing extreme back then?
I knew it was a lot. Like I knew because I would go to school and because I had a part-time job that counted for school credit. So I actually had one less class than everyone else. So I left early every day. And when I
Mm.
left, if I had work that day, I'd go to the gym, I'd run. It was an indoor track that was like 12 laps to a mile, and I would walk, run 4 miles every day. And then
Wow.
if I had work, I would lift, I would come home, pretend to do homework, and then go to my job. Or if I didn't
Every
work,
day.
I would come home from school, I would go run, I would then come home and air quotes do homework. And then I was actually in a mixed martial arts gym at the time, so I would inspired entirely by a movie that I saw, and it like amped me up as a typical dude behavior, right?
Which
Like
movie?
I'm gonna do what they did in the movie. And so I would go to that gym and I would train with them for 2 hours, and then I would go to the first gym afterwards and go lift weights for an hour, and then come home and rinse and repeat. And that was
How
like
about
my life for that entire year.
but how about your, like, food intake? Was that low or was it, like,
It
pretty
was kind of like the first 3 months, I just like didn't think about food. I was like, 17 years old, don't really know anything. I'm like, I just need to
Yeah.
exercise. I don't exercise. I
So
need
you
to exercise. That's going to
wow.
be the game changer. And that same schedule, that first 3 months, I lost a total of 5 pounds because I was still eating takeout. I was still like getting the McDonald's
Ah,
and whatnot.
okay.
Um, and so after that first 3 months of like busting my ass and realizing like, okay, I did all of that for 3 months and only lost 5 pounds. That sucks. This is dumb.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, all right, I should probably start paying attention to my
Welcome
eating.
to
But
our
again,
world.
right? And
Suck on that. Welcome to the mind of every woman after
Yeah.
25, struggling
it's
to lose weight.
it's clear on this. We're just gonna strip away all the privilege that I have. We're gonna take it bit by bit, piece by piece. And
No, no.
and so yeah,
Yeah.
so then I like again as a 17-year-old with no knowledge in nutrition at the time, I just like did what I knew, right? So I ate less, yes, although I wasn't like so depriving myself of food that it was like problematic,
Mm.
but I was still not really like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what protein was or the importance of that. I
Mhm.
was just like, I'm gonna eat less. I'm gonna eat what I think is healthy, which is like, you know, veggies, and I did eat a copious amount of pasta though. Which I don't regret at all. And so then slowly like
Never,
started to take
never.
shape and I started to actually see the weight loss come more consistently. And I think again, very extreme approach, but I think the most I saw in a month was like 15 pounds I lost.
That's a
And
lot though,
it's a lot.
That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
But again, working out 2, 3 times a day, every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
I could commit the time to that. I think is the
So,
important thing.
question for
Yeah.
you really quickly before you go deeper into your story. Was there anything that like started that? Like, was there a catalyst for you to
Mm.
want to turn that switch on and be like, okay, I'm going all in? Was it a health thing? Was it like, I'm just tired of this shit? I'm tired of feeling like this? What was it for you?
Bullying, like you're in high school, so like,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know.
there was definitely the first. So interesting thing about the bullying is, yes, there was a fair share of that. I had a unique approach, which I actually
Mm.
don't think now in hindsight is unique, which is my personality is one that I can be. How do I want to explain this? I was sort of cool with everyone, but not close
Yes,
with
I was
anyone.
like that.
Okay.
I get it.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
were
I get
yeah.
it.
likable.
Yes.
You were likable.
Yes.
People
Yeah,
liked
like
Yes.
you use humor, you learn to be likable with everyone, even if it's just like sort of on the periphery, so that everyone, I wasn't
Yeah.
popular by any stretch, but everyone knew me. And
Right.
that sort of
Okay.
acted as its own protective mechanism against like
I get
extreme
that.
levels of bullying, right? There was still teasing and things like that, but
And the humor, do you feel like the humor played that role as well, like for you, the protective mechanism? Like,
yeah, but not
did
in
you
the
use
same way
humor?
that I think a lot of times it's interesting. I was just having this conversation with a client of mine who is actually an old high school
Yeah.
classmate, similar story, overweight in high school, and he sort of uses humor generally, but also self-deprecatingly as sort of the like, I'm going to beat you to the
Mm,
punchline so that you can
yes.
sort of the
Yeah.
Eminem approach. Like if I say all the bad
Yeah.
things about me, then you have nothing left to say. So it takes that power away.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. Like
Mm,
I was never self-deprecating in
mhm.
my humor, but I think I
Okay.
was just realized that if I make people laugh and feel good when they're around me, then they like being around me and then they don't bully me.
Mm.
And
It's a
so that
Wow,
distraction.
wise
definitely,
for your years.
yeah, well,
Very wise.
in hindsight, I can explain that was the reason, but we just did it,
Right,
right?
right.
It was,
Well, you just knew it kinda intuitively, like it was working, right?
right.
So, yeah, I get that. Okay, okay, cool.
But as for what sort of led to the transformation is I think it's hard to like pinpoint in hindsight because, I have now all
Mhm.
the
Yeah. There's
rationalizations of
probably a whole
things.
bunch of different things.
Yeah, but I think it's ultimately like two sort of star aligning moments for me. One is because I had tried multiple times throughout my childhood and throughout even high school of trying to make that transformation to no avail. But I think it
Mhm.
was all of my friends were applying to colleges, getting accepted into colleges, sort of getting ready to start their futures. And I, smart but mediocre student, mediocre grades, didn't do any college applications, didn't have any plans for college other than community college. And I think I had this sort of epiphany, which again, I'm thankful for at that time, even the level of maturity that I had to realize that we are all, me and my classmates, getting ready to start this next chapter, this next phase, our adult lives.
Mm.
And I had this moment where I was like, if I don't change this now, this will be forever.
Wow.
And that terrified me because I didn't want it to be
Mm.
forever. So that's a big part. The second part, arguably probably more important and urgent at the time, was I had gotten into my first relationship. So I had my
Mm.
first girlfriend.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I had asked of myself, sort of when I was in that relationship, was, am I the person that I feel like she would be proud to show off to people?
Oh,
You asked yourself that at 17,
Yeah. And
18? Wow.
to her credit, my high school girlfriend at the time, she never, like, that was totally true at the time. Like, she
Yeah.
was all in. But in my mind, I had convinced myself that that wasn't true.
Mm.
And so that was sort of a very big driving, motivating factor for me throughout that time and making that transformation
Wow.
was I'm going to be the person that she's proud to show off.
Hmm.
I
That's
mean, that's
awesome.
fair.
I love
That's
that.
a fair
Yeah.
assessment because I mean, I think we all
Yeah.
do that too, right?
Yeah.
You all want to show up as your best self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even now. But to have that kinda enlightenment or that kind of thought process, like, at that age, because I know where I was when I was 17. I wasn't there.
For real.
Well,
So
so
that yeah, that's
yeah, I mean, I think I've always been sort of a little bit introspective. So I'm a writer.
yeah,
Obviously, that
sounds
becomes
like
more
it.
relevant now in this stage of my life. But I've always sort of been a writer, and that was always how I didn't journal or anything like that. But I would write. Like one of my big things to do when I was younger, when I was like not out being social, was I would write short stories. And
Oh,
so the act of writing for me is very meditative, but also a way for me to reflect on what I am. So how did I get to those conclusions and have those epiphanies? I think that had a lot to do with like processing my thoughts and
right.
actually thinking about what I'm thinking and why I'm
Yeah.
thinking that has sort of led to the level of self-awareness that allowed for that
Wow.
to happen.
Yeah,
That's pretty good though.
that's
I mean,
amazing. Yeah.
you
So,
got deep real
did
quick.
you yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So did you, like, so you're done, like, you lose the weight within a year and stuff. So did you just keep it off after since then, or did you have kinda, like, ups and downs?
Yeah. So I have effectively kept the weight off the entire time.
Oh, nice.
There was one period of time, like shortly after college, where I maybe bulked a little too much and got a little bit up there, and then I was
Mm.
like, all right, now we're just justifying.
Yeah, but you're still in the lifestyle though.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're
but I was
still
still
lifting,
definitely
you're
in it, and
doing
that
all
was
the
when I was a full-time
things.
fitness coach by that point, anyways.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, but no, it's because, and here's the thing with sort of the level that I went to start that transformation, which is
Mhm.
while I don't, urge people to do it in quite that way, nor do people have the time and energy and resources to do that. For me, I think it was important to do it that way because it expedited the identity shift.
Mm.
Like my whole life came about this very quickly, and then it solidified that identity thereafter. And it's been sort of a process. So um, I was running at the time. I continued to run. And so in the running community, there's a term called streak running, not to be confused with
Okay.
streaking.
Yeah.
Okay, what's
I'm all
Streak,
elaborate. Yeah, I know because I
going
was
yeah,
all
there?
yeah, yeah.
elaborate on that,
If
please.
you're a runner and you're a quote unquote streaker, obviously a play on words, is you run for uninterrupted days, not continuously, but like you do a running workout for uninterrupted days for
Mhm.
an elongated period of time. So what did that mean
Okay.
for me? I ran 4 miles every day for 5 consecutive years.
No. Wow.
My eyes just, if you guys
Wow.
aren't watching on YouTube, my eyes just bugged out of my head. I'm like, whoa.
And that
Wow.
started
Talk
when I
about
was
some
able to actually
commitment.
run 4 miles consecutively, sort of towards the
Consecutive.
tail end of that transformation, and all the way through college, and then thereafter for a period of time, like every day. Now
You were
that
like hungover sometimes in college, right?
I would do it hungover. I still do it hungover. I do it
Yes.
hungover. I would do it. But so here's
Wow.
there's pluses and minuses. Obviously, on one hand, that's incredibly chaotic and psychotic and crazy, and
Yeah.
that's all true. In some states, it's impressive and very
Yep.
disciplined.
Yep.
That's cool too. I mean, but I also did it like would have stress fractures in my feet, and I would still do it.
Mhm.
Like I
Wow.
would, like I just nothing stopped, and that was part of the identity. Like this is who I am, but it was also part of the fear, which I think a lot of people don't talk
Okay.
about.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna
what I
say
was
You
going to
lose a lot
ask.
of
why?
I
weight.
was going to
Why?
ask.
Yeah, right. So anyone
Yeah.
who's lost an
Yeah.
appreciable amount of weight knows,
Yeah.
especially if that's been your entire existence, is there's this period after you lose the weight where there's just this tremendous fear of it all coming back because it feels fragile.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a little
Again,
bit.
welcome to
Yeah.
the
Or
minds
it
of our
kind of.
world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or the minds of someone like you said, like someone because both you and I are in like kind of like the 100+ pound club. Because really, essentially, I think you have lost about 100 pounds, right? Like
Yeah.
you say 87, but I think you mentioned before that's just kind of when you looked at it, but it might be more, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, and yeah, I'd have to agree. Like just men, women, doesn't matter who you are, that fear. I'll admit, like there's always I don't know, there's just that little bit, like, no
There's
matter
always
where
going to
I
be that
get and how far I
underlying like
come, right?
question in the back of your
Yeah.
head. Yeah, but it's also because
Yeah,
of everything prior up, like leading up to that point,
and
and
you
also
have
your
to, like, I
history.
find yeah, and I find myself, and I don't know if maybe you don't now, Alex, but like before, but I have found myself like now I'm like, no, no, you're coming from a grounded place. You're coming from a good place. You're not doing this because you're afraid or for punishment or for whatever, like not none of those things, right? But that doesn't negate the fact that it's still there, just a little bit. It's
Yeah.
always kind of lurking. So, yeah, I get that.
100%. And I think and this is where I tell people that I work with too, there's two parts to resolving that. The first is consistency. You just have to consistently stick to
Yeah.
the habits to sort of continue to ingrain them as part of your lifestyle, but also to prove to yourself that it's not fragile and not temporary. And then the second part, which is the worst of all, which is time. You just need time to prove to
Yes.
yourself that it's not
Yes.
temporary. And that's what happened to
Mm,
me. So I ran 4 miles every day for 5 consecutive years. And then at that point, I started to like feel the ease back, and I could
mm.
uh, relax a little bit on that. Now,
Like you can let
I've
off the gas a little bit
I
comfortably.
let off, yeah. So it's in some ways, so I can, for example, I can count on one hand the number of times I've not worked out in the past 10 years.
On one hand,
Wow.
On one hand.
Wow. That's
impressive.
kinda
So I
crazy.
do something every day. That's the still like crazy part of me that's still there.
Okay.
But now it's just not
Yeah,
feeling right.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's either lifting or it's running or it's, if I'm traveling and I'm hiking or like I do something physical every single day. So it's
It's
still
like a
like
non-negotiable, right? Like
100%. Yeah, yeah,
there
yeah.
has to be something. Yeah.
So depending on how you
Yeah,
look at it,
that's
it's still a little crazy because like, bro,
Mhm.
chill. But also it's now balanced enough, in my opinion, it's balanced enough where, because I mean, you guys know that when you get to a point where when you don't do something physically active to move your body, you feel that. You don't feel like yourself. You don't
Yeah.
Yeah.
feel
I mean,
right.
I'm actually
No.
going to challenge you and say it's actually not as neurotic as you make it out to be. Because as I'm sitting here, like analyzing it in my brain and you're talking, I mean, we all three of us kind of have that situation set up, whether it's a lift session, a cardio session, or just steps. But that's because
Yeah.
it's implemented in our life as our foundational non negotiable habits because it's what makes us feel good. So I don't think it's actually as crazy pants as you make it out to be. Because now that I'm thinking about it, like, no, that's me too, though. Like, there's
No,
really
that's
not a
true.
Yeah,
day where I
or
do
Yeah,
zero.
yeah. But also bold to think that the three of us aren't crazy. So
I
That's true.
mean,
We are cricket.
well, I mean,
um
the shoe fits.
so like I want to kind of if you don't mind, Alex, I want to talk about this from because I know we jokingly are saying like walk the mind of a woman or whatever, but like I want to know a little bit about you, like the mind of a dude. I don't think it's talked about enough. A dude, a man. Do you know
Let's
what a
have some
male
bro
like?
talk.
Yeah, let's talk bro talk.
yeah.
Manosphere. No, just kidding. Um, yeah. So,
Mansplain the mind of
obviously,
a brain to us, please.
yes, please, either from your own perspective or even from the perspective of your male clients. Like, how does this show up? And I know we all are about like emotional regulation and we want to get into that part of it with, we do get into that part of it with our coaching. So, like, how does that show up? I guess both parts of that with your male clients. I'm really curious because it's not talked about enough.
Yeah. Well, so specify for me the context in which you would like to understand the workings of a dude brain. And I'm going to preface that by saying I'm probably the
Yeah.
worst person to ask because I don't think I have a typical
Okay.
dude brain. And I mean that in a good way,
Okay.
actually. Um,
Yeah, fair enough. Because you're very self-aware. I know there's like you
Not to say
I
dudes
guess I
aren't
would say
self-aware, but like,
they're not to say that. Yes. Okay, let's
but
say
also
that
like
too.
do better.
Um,
I'm gonna pose
do
it as
better,
this
but also
way
do better. Yeah, go ahead.
because a lot of us women are in our brains a lot. We question everything. We wonder if this is going to work. Those voices, those
Insecurities.
Hmm.
Mhm.
self-limiting beliefs, those masks that we
Yeah.
walked around with for our whole entire life. Do you also see that happening with your male clients? Because I have yet to work. I mean, well, I work with my husband, but that's different. That doesn't count in my brain. But do you also see those type of things happening with men? Or are they
So
more
Body
I
like
image.
think it's
Just
automatic?
in
Like, give me
general.
the thing. Yeah, give me the plan. I'll show up and I'll execute it and I'll execute it flawlessly.
yeah. No, that's a good question. And I think it's interesting because I think particularly men that work with me, it's sort of a self-selecting process, right? Because I'm very psych driven, self-awareness is a
Yeah.
big part of how we coach. And so I think most of the men that select to work with me and with my team are self-selecting themselves as being that sort of self-aware side of things where
Right.
they know they might overthink and they might do all the same things that you guys just expressed in whatever flavor is present in their life. And I think the ones who don't do that, because we obviously see this in society too with a lot of men, is the ones that lack the self-awareness, that lack the ability to see how they're showing up and the ways in which they're, not
Mm.
generally aware of how they're behaving in the world and perceiving themselves, don't have the awareness to like question that they're doing that. So they just perpetuate it, if that makes sense.
Now, would you say that
Fair.
they lack self-awareness though, because there's a whole generation of men that were basically told to man up and not like really express emotion or like even like sit there and dive deep into what they're dealing with?
I'm sure there's an element of that, certainly. And I think this is interesting because I think it is also one of the interesting things I'll sort of explain it as this. One of the interesting things coming to New Jersey that was lacking in Michigan is
Mm.
the strength of Italian American culture.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason
Yeah.
I bring this up, obviously, beautiful culture, a lot of positive things about it. So I'm not going to
Mhm.
harp on it at all. But one very interesting element to it is the relationship between sons and mothers, which is, I
Indian
think, present
culture.
across all
They
cultures,
align. Yeah.
especially in the way that they're sort of treated and idolized isn't the right word, but like they're sort of put on a pedestal as like,
Silver spoon.
yes. And so I think
Yeah.
I've
Yes.
seen this in interactions that I have with people who have grown up
Mhm.
in that environment, in that uh, sort of relationship, is their perceptions of themselves and their place in the world is sort of larger in proportion to what they're actually contributing.
They're made out to be more important than what they are.
Right.
Yep.
I'll say
You know,
it. Don't dance around
like
it. I'll say
like
it.
like they think they're God's gift to earth when they're actually just kind of mediocre. And
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
because they've
yeah.
been coddled. They've been coddled and told that they are so, so, so important and such an integral part of their families, which I mean, I'm not trying to discredit and say that they're not, but it's like, bro, you're not as important as you think you are. Calm down.
right. And and
Yeah.
and I, to flip to the understanding side of that continuum, like I get it, right? As a parent, you want your kid to feel special. You want them to feel loved. And
Mhm.
how you know how to do that. So you shower them with love and you want to make them feel capable to take on the world. And
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also don't want them to go out into the world and come off as a complete
right.
jackass, though.
And
You got to
and
find
and
that
and
happy
and
medium.
And Alex, like speaking from experience, because I find like the Italian culture and like the Indian culture, as far as that, like, I'm gonna just say it, enmeshment is concerned, because it is. There is a level of that between mothers and sons. Um, this is like a whole different, and I don't I don't know, maybe other people see it, but I know in my culture, like, we see it, and, it's something that is talked about now, and it's like, "Okay, it needs to change," because this is what it's created of this generation of men, and what has that led to, and how has that, not only for themselves, but, like, just within relationships, just in general, and it plays a huge role, and, like, understanding it or being aware of it, even as a coach, I think that's really important, crucial, in like being able to help people from different cultures, period, right?
Yep.
Um, but yeah, like I can attest to that for sure. Like I see it all the time, and I know with my kids, I have two boys. I'm just like, my little one will be like, "Oh, I know, I know." I'm like, "Stop saying you know, okay? You don't know everything. Just stop."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'm
But
not
you in
doing
your
that. I'm
place.
not I know I'm not doing what was modeled to me, like, with my brother and my cousins and every boy in our culture, like, yeah, so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
And so to sidestep for a second, because one of the original questions you guys had for me was sort of this idea of
Yeah.
overthinking and constantly being in your head and whatnot. And I think for me personally, it's been sort of informed by a couple of experiences. One is being very independent as a child. So my parents were separated
Mm,
from before I can remember. So it was mostly me, my two brothers, and my mom. And she has always been very career driven. So she's
mm,
always been working long days, late nights, etc. And so it was up to us, and I'm the youngest of the three. It was up to us to sort of take care of ourselves.
With
You
the
know,
latchkey kids.
yeah,
yeah.
100%. Doesn't fly anymore, but here we are. And so, like, I would make breakfast for me or dinner for me and my brothers,
Yeah,
when I was like 11. And why the
yeah.
oldest, who was 15, wasn't doing that? That's another question. But
That was probably more a personality trait, though, your kinda character as well, because I know I'm
yeah,
a younger, like, I'm a middle, and that's kind of the role that I took on, but
The
my sister
nurturing
didn't
role.
necessarily, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so
So that's informs part of it. I think the other part too is my entire adult life has been spent in entrepreneurship. So I started my personal training company when I was
mm,
23, and it's the only thing I've ever done. So
wow.
that's interesting because, as you both know, when you enter entrepreneurship, there's no playbook, there's no rules, there's no roadmap. You're just figuring it out as you go.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
doing that for as long as I have, and that being my only professional experience, means that I, by force, had to get comfortable trusting myself and my decisions. And I think
Mm,
those two experiences combined have led me to a point now in terms of like the overthinking where, and I can confidently say this, and I'm going to try not to say it in a way that makes me come across as one of those unself-aware dudes who like needs to check themselves. But there's no one for my circumstances and for what I'm trying to accomplish or for the problems that I'm experiencing that I trust to figure out the answer more than myself because I'm in
great.
it. and I'm experiencing it, and the
That's
outcomes
fair.
are only going to impact me. Right. Now, that doesn't
Exactly.
mean that I
Yeah.
don't see the value in, like, if I have a medical issue, I'm going to talk to a doctor. I'm not stupid. Right. But
Hmm.
when it comes to like issues of, oh, I'm going into this room, what am I going to say? How am I going to present myself? How are people going to perceive me? Like, that's a prime
Hmm.
example of there's no one else to trust but me to go in there and figure it out.
But
Mm.
that actually makes sense because, I mean, you are the one in control. So, I mean, you
Right.
can't rely on anything else.
100%.
It's your
And so
livelihood.
that
It's you.
helps there not be any second guessing, because it's like, okay, I made a decision,
Nice.
it worked or it didn't, and then
Yeah.
we do better the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like, it's funny. My sister and I were just having this conversation this morning, and she's like, instead of saying like, I'm going to try it, just say, no, I'm going to do it. Because then you kind of
Yeah.
already are putting yourself into that trap of like failing. Right. And so I kind of relate to that. It makes sense. You just go in, you get it done. And if it doesn't work out, cool. Like you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yep.
around and
The
find out.
outcome is, yeah, the outcome is the outcome. At minimum, it's a good outcome. At the very, very like least, and it's a learning experience. And
Right.
you figure out how to do something a
Yeah.
little different next time.
So let's tie that into because I want to talk about your book. I want to spend some time talking about your
Do
book.
it.
So let's tie that into that because you talk about that. It's all about like going into rooms and how not all about, but like part of it is going into rooms and how you present yourself and also observing others. So, without like revealing anything, I want you obviously take the lead on it and like tell us more about it and where
Well,
that
first, tell
stems
us
from and
about your book and like
yeah.
details about it. Like, when are people going
Yeah,
to
we
be able
gotta
to have
remember Carmi
access to
hasn't
it?
read it yet. She's in the dark.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Right,
Asshole.
sorry.
Down.
Bitch. Batch. Okay.
Alex
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's the number one rule in the book. Don't call each other names.
Names, name calling.
There's actually not a section in the book about that because
No.
sometimes it's necessary. But no.
They're just
So
pet
okay.
names. It's
So the
okay.
book is tentatively titled "The Friendship Formula: The Art and Science of Adult
Okay.
Friendship," and it is entirely about making new friendships and maintaining those friendships as an adult, which is a growing need right
Yeah.
now. Obviously, in society, loneliness is all-time high, despite us being connected to everyone in the world simultaneously, all at once. And it is an interesting book because it's the psychology of how friendship actually forms. So this is how it differs from a lot of the existing books on friendship that are already out there, which is there's kind of two challenges that I saw in books about friendship. They're either like The Good Life, for example, which is the book that I have here, which is a great book, um,
Mhm.
is very research driven. Like these are Stanford scientists, and they took all the research and including the 50 plus year study that went on of relationships and following people throughout their lives, and basically
Right.
stumbled upon the fact that the biggest thing you can do, the most important thing you can do for your long term health and longevity, is to have strong social ties above anything else.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
something that we're obviously losing.
Yeah.
But the challenge in that book is it's so research heavy. It's so like sciencey and academic that it, quite frankly, was
It's like
boring to read.
reading
Like
PubMed.
100.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
yeah.
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 And there's a particular flavor of person that would enjoy that, and kudos to them. But it certainly was not me.
Not I.
No.
And then on the other side of that spectrum of books about friendship are people who sort of just write from anecdotal personal experience. Like, this is what I did to make friends. Go do the same thing. And
Right.
that robbed itself too of, okay, like this is advice is nice, but not really that helpful because my circumstances are different. I don't have the same
Yeah.
access to things that you have. Like, I can't do what you do. And so I wrote this book as sort of a meshing of the two. So it is backed in science. Like, it's the psychology of friendship. My
Mhm.
background is in psychology. That's what my degree is in. And so it's called the friendship formula because how connection forms and how friendships form is a formula. It's predictable,
Mhm.
it's repeatable. And when you understand it and know how to apply it, you can make friendships and create a sense of belonging no matter where you are.
Oh.
And it is sort of written in the perspective of my personal experience applying it when I moved to New Jersey. When I moved to New Jersey, I was 32 years old. and was starting my social life completely over. I knew one person in New
Yeah.
Jersey, and I had to go through the process, which I think is not uncommon because people move for jobs and move for family and just relocate for all sorts of reasons. So I think it happens, but still the majority of people never leave a 20-mile radius of where they were born and where they grew up.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
lot of people don't quite get the experience of having to start over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's anecdotally stories about sort of my starting over and other various stories of others and myself throughout my life and throughout their lives. And within the perspective of applying this repeatable formula that anyone can use, no matter where they are, no matter what they have access to, because it's the fundamental basis for how friendship forms.
Now, what's the basis of this formula without giving out too much information to make sure
Oh,
that
I'll tell you the whole thing.
our listeners
Okay.
read? Oh, okay.
I'll tell you the whole formula.
Yeah, let's talk about
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah,
I
let's talk
loved
about it.
it.
Let's dive
I'll
into
tell you.
that
Yeah.
because Dal
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
resonate with this really deeply as far
Yeah.
as friendship goes
Yeah.
because we are always back and forth. And, we met at RCS. Daniel Yoris connected us, and our
Through
friendship has
DMs. Yeah.
blossomed over the last few years. And, we talk about how it's amazing how important we've become in each other's lives because we've helped
In
each
our
other through some,
40s.
yeah, in our 40s, because
Yeah.
you have these friends throughout your childhood who are almost like, okay, they're default friends because you've grown up with them. You're in the same settings, right? Now we're
Yeah.
here as adults. And to find this deep connection that I now share with her is super important because I know that, like, if I send out a SOS, she is on the phone stopping everything. And likewise with her. And these are almost like more valuable friendships because I won't cry. I won't get emo. I maybe not. No, no. But because these are almost like chosen, cultivated relationships. And so it takes more
Yeah.
work, it takes more effort. And I don't want to say that like in a bad way, but it's like you have to actually work at these relationships. So by all means, please share.
Yeah.
And also, if before you get into it, Alex, it's also the narrative, right? Like, I know I had that narrative. I know many people do that. It's really hard to find. We say find, but what we want to say is cultivate. But like these friendships, right? In your 40s, because and I love this about your book, so you can go get into it, but, like, it really did resolve and answer some questions for me as well because I was struggling with, like, "Oh, but, like, childhood friends," or, "We've known each other for so long," but, like, the 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 connection as far as that time is there, but not necessarily, like, substance, right, anymore
Yeah.
because different lives, all of that. So, yeah, that'd be cool.
For
Wherever
sure.
you wanna go with this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll share the whole framework with you, but before we do that, a couple of contextual things to make it
Yeah.
make sense. And to your point, Dal, too, that you just said, the average lifespan of a friendship is 7 years. 7 years is how long most of our friends will be in our
Yeah.
life. And
Wow.
that sort of makes sense. So
Yes.
before I say why, we have to think about friendship as it happened in childhood, which was just objectively easier.
Yeah.
Even if you struggled to make friends as a child, it is still objectively easier to do it. And why is that? For a couple of reasons. One is when we're going through the school system, we are thrust in a room of our peers for hours every single day of the week with no choice but to be there and around those people. And that becomes
Right.
increasingly
Yep.
important. Our physical proximity to people, which can also happen online, by the way, if we do it strategically. But our proximity and being around people is crucial to feeling safe around them. And that's a big part of the formula, which I'll share here in a sec. But also to both of your points about like the challenges as we get a little bit older and we start to figure out that like not only is it harder to maintain our existing friendships, but it's harder to meet people is because when we're in school, our peers are also all of our same age,
Yeah.
which means we're going through all of the big milestones in life together.
Mm.
Right? We're all worrying about the same exams. We're all talking about our crushes and our first
The
kisses. We're all
boys.
getting ready
Yeah.
for prom, right? And talking about the parties and where we're going to go to college and what we're going to study. And those are all happening together. So there's a lot of points of connectedness to our peers because we can
Yeah.
all understand each other. And we're all going through puberty at the same time, most of us. So it's like we're all kind of in it together. And that makes it a lot more natural for friendships to form because there's a lot of points for us to connect on. When you get into adulthood, both of those things go away. We're not now suddenly in close physical proximity to our friends all the time. right now, on average, people spend 3 hours or less with their friends face to face every week, which is
Yeah, I can see
not a
that.
lot.
Yeah.
For context, it takes 200 plus hours of being with someone to form a close friendship.
Like, do you mean like physically or just in general?
Doesn't have to be
Like,
physically.
talk.
That's the key point.
Right. Okay.
Doesn't have to be physically.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Good
it can be
question.
expedited. It can be expedited,
Okay.
and I'll explain now. But on average, it takes that long. So we're just not around people, especially in modern society,
Mhm.
right? We can literally do everything we want without ever leaving our house, and most of us choose to do that because it's easier,
Yeah, I know. I know,
right?
right? Yeah.
Even grocery shopping now, right? You
Yeah.
just get groceries delivered, so you don't have to be
Click
around.
and collect, man. Click
Yeah,
and
yeah,
collect.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So we're just not around people as much anymore to be able to
Yeah.
make those friendships. But also, when we get into adulthood, and maybe this has been your guys' experience too, but I have friends that are on all different stages of life. I have friends younger than me now. I have friends older than me. Like people that I'm around, coworkers, et cetera, are all different ages, which means we are now going through life on different timelines,
Yes.
right? So, like to your
Yep.
point, if I have a friend who is a new mother and is now caring for a young child and is expressing the challenges that she's experiencing, I don't know what that's like. I don't have any children.
Mhm.
I can't is I can sympathize, but I can't empathize with that because I genuinely don't know what that's like,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
I could have a friend who just retired from their job and they're expressing how difficult it is to now be figuring out the next phase of their life and their work being their identity and having to restructure that, and I don't know what that's like. It's hard for me to connect on that. And
Right.
so because we're going through life on different timelines as adults, it's just harder to connect with people naturally
Yeah.
without a little bit of
Yeah.
intention. So that makes it all difficult. How do we fix it? How do we
How do
fix
we
it?
fix it? Yes.
And that's the 7 years then suddenly makes sense because 7 years is sort of not directly, but loosely aligns with the major transitions in our life, right? We're going through school, we
Mhm.
graduate high school, 7 years. We're going through college, and then we're sort of thereafter starting our careers, another 7-ish years. We get into romantic relationships and we get married and we start to settle down and we start to get more established
Mhm.
in our careers, 7 years. We think about, or during that time, we're having kids and that's changing drastically our life, 7 years. Kids start going to school. They're old enough to be in school. Now they have their own friends and now they're more independent and we
Mm.
don't have to be as directly like hour by hour involved in their lives. So now we have more free time. 7 years. We stop hanging out with their friends' parents, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of these things sort of loosely align with these major life transitions that's then sort of again deteriorate the structure that allowed us to create those friendships in that phase. But the friendship formula is effectively 3 stages that have to go in order.
Oh,
Mm.
has to.
The first,
Okay.
we're getting into the good
Mhm.
stuff now.
Yeah.
Pay attention, folks.
I need more friends. Just kidding.
No, you don't. Shut up.
The
Enough.
You
the
you
no,
is.
all right. So before I give you the formula, I wanna address that for a second, right? Because one of the things I talk about in
Yeah.
the book is the different friendship roles that exist,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
important
Yeah.
because one of the other things that can happen, and this can happen with friendships, it can also happen in our romantic relationships, which is we can expect one person to fulfill many different roles
Mm.
Yeah, Dal.
where they're not necessarily meant to fulfill all those roles. It can actually be a lot of pressure
Exactly.
on someone to be everything to us. So I talk about in the beginning of the book, I talk about specific friendship roles that like everyone should look for. And the
Mm.
examples of these might be like what I call the gardener, which is your friend who's all about like growth and sees the potential in you to get better at things and is constantly pushing you to sort of make those stretch goals and you know, reach for the ambitious
Mhm.
things that you want to do, make you believe in yourself. Then there's the hype man or the hype woman who's the one who's just like, you're amazing right now. Like, don't forget you're amazing, right?
Yep.
They're hyping you up no matter
Yeah.
what. Then there's the spark. The spark is your fun friend. They're the one that reminds you that like, hey, let's go out and have a good time. Like, let's go have a girls' day. Let's go do brunch. Let's, we probably shouldn't, but like, let's take that extra shot right now and then just live it up tonight and we'll pay for it tomorrow, right? Like,
We'll
we,
deal with it tomorrow.
Alex, we are all of those. Okay. No, just kidding.
but hold on, Alex. I mean, I understand you say that we're not supposed to be all the roles, but like, what if like we just have multiple
What if we
personalities
are?
that play that
so
role?
no, listen,
Because like I'm
it's
checking all the check marks with Dal, and I'm like, but yes, and yes, and yes.
all right. So and so that's
Yeah.
rare, and so that's not, we can be multiple roles. That part's totally true, right?
Right.
Because then there's the confidant who's
Right.
going to like hold our deepest secrets and create space for us to vent about things,
Yeah.
and
I'm
generally
not
let us
check.
sort
Again.
of jump on that. There's also the anchor, which is the person who's going to physically be there and show up for us, right? Like they're the person we call at 2 a.m. with a flat tire, and they're going to come help us figure it
Right.
out, and they're going to just be present for that.
Okay,
right?
yeah, I can't do that from the States and Canada. So okay, yes.
And then
Uncheck me on that
the
one.
last of the 6 roles is the mirror, who's like our nostalgic childhood friend. They sort of have seen all the different variations of us throughout time. And someone can become a mirror at any point just by being in our life long enough, right? They don't have to be a childhood friend per se, but someone who just sort
Yeah.
of understands the prior versions of us and has seen the metamorphosis over time.
Yeah.
So people can be multiple roles, right? Like your confidant and your anchor can be the same person. They're emotionally for you, and they'll also show up physically for you, right? Like that's natural.
Right. And we don't always like, we have friends or, you know, that we don't always reveal our deepest and darkest secrets for sure. Right. Like that's definitely, yeah, you're right. So
And
I get the multiple roles.
100%. And that's a crucial point, Dahl, which I'm glad you said
Yep.
it, which is someone can be all of these roles, but they don't have to be. So
Yep.
just because our spark friend, the one who's our fun friend who reminds us to go out, just because we don't have super emotionally deep conversations with them, doesn't mean that's not a good and valuable friendship, because it is
That's
doing
fair.
something for us,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's a kind of like that reframe too for us to think about it that way too. Like that, you know, friends aren't necessarily everything because I think in a way, I think a lot of us do feel like that, like, oh, this person has to be everything. So I like the fact that you're differentiating this.
Actually, I
Yeah.
have never walked around thinking that though. Surprisingly.
No?
But maybe because of my past, like how I've been burned by certain people.
Like thinking
Because
someone
I-
has to be everything.
Yeah, where I'm just like, okay, like I guess I navigate it in a sense in my brain, in Carmi's brain. It's like, okay, like you, I hold you in a different category. Like you're my friend, like you're my ride or die, like we ride at dawn. Like that's what I joke about, right? Whereas like I
Yeah.
have friends where we're friends. Like I know I can call you, but I'm not gonna really get that deep. And I'm also not gonna give you like my deep inner secrets like I share with you. Because I know you hold the secrets and I know they're safe. Where it's like I
Right.
don't feel like they're unsafe. I just know that there's different textures and layers to the friendships. And that's how I approach it. So maybe it's kind of like a little like riff off of how you're approaching it, but I've never like expected somebody to be all the things for me. But then again, I don't know if I've ever up until this point had a friend that showed up in a way that like Dal has showed up in my life.
Yeah. No,
So
but
maybe
I
that's
actually
where I'm
think that's
jaded.
really healthy. I think that's really healthy to think of it that way, because a lot of people fall into the trap of, if they're not my ride or die, then they're not a real friend.
Yes.
And then that is
Yeah,
sort of
that's fair. Yeah.
self-isolating because they ignore the value that that person can provide in their life, despite them not being. And you also alluded to something else I talk about, which is sort of how we define friendships, which I probably should have started with this. The way in the book I define friendship is a mutual agreement between two people to care about each other more than the average person.
Yeah.
And
that's
that
a
is sort of
really good
intentionally
definition.
vague because we're talking about all the different forms and flavors that friendship can take. And so
Yeah.
friendship can also be categorized across 3 different variables, which you just alluded to, Carmi. So I want to talk about it briefly, is depth, purpose, and emotional role.
Mm.
So depth and purpose, for example, we can have friends. One of the stories I share in the book is in my mid-20s when I was sort of reigniting my going out party phase for one reason or another. I went out to the bars a lot. Is I had a group of friends that were my going out friends. And we'd hang out every weekend. We'd go out together. Like, it was a great time. We had some of those people, I'm no longer friends with any of them because I stopped doing that activity, right? But some of those people never knew what I did for a living,
That's crazy, right? Yeah.
right? Like the
Huh.
depth was so shallow, but the purpose was to have fun. And that served its role
The
in my life
purpose.
at the
Yeah.
time, right? And so one of the things that I hope people take when they read this book is sort of recategorizing whether they do it in a healthy manner, like Carmi, you just expressed, you've sort of always done intuitively, or if they fall into the trap of thinking that like it's ride or die or bust, is understanding that the casual, shallow friendships can be really meaningful in their own way because they
Yeah.
provide something
That's fair.
different that
That's
are
actually really important. That's a really crucial point. Like, I think for everyone to really take in and maybe take a step back and like reflect on that and then go get Alex's book when it comes out.
Yeah.
well, because here's an example of where this might go wrong, right? We
Yeah.
might have a friend that is our confidant and our anchor, and we have the deepest of conversations. They know our darkest secrets and our most vulnerable moments, right? But they don't like to go out. They don't like to, like, their version of fun is different than ours. They're like the bookworm that just likes to be introverted and sit, and that's why they can have those deep conversations, because that's who they are. But sometimes we just want to go out and we want to do something fun. We want to turn the energy
Yeah.
up and we want to like get crazy. And that's just not them. And so there are times where friendships can start to deteriorate because their only interactions are these really deep conversations, which, especially if they're not balanced, can feel draining on one person or the other. And then there's never the levity of the fun. And sometimes we can feel resentful of that. Like, why don't you, like, we're only talking about these really heavy topics. We're never going out and having fun together. Whereas that's just not the role that that friendship was supposed to serve. But if we can find that elsewhere, like that's not the friend we call when we're going to the bars or we're going out to a show or anything like that, then it alleviates, this is what we were talking about earlier, putting the pressure on that person to
Yeah.
be the thing that they can't be.
Yeah.
Right.
You know who to call if you want to have a good time. You know who to call if you need to cry, kind of
Exactly.
situation. Okay.
100%.
That's fair. I mean,
They
that's
can be the same
wonderful.
person, but they don't have to be the same person. And that's the important
But
part.
it's also
Right.
managing
That's a
expectations
distinction.
and nurturing the
Yeah.
relationships in whatever way it has to.
Right. Right. So
Yeah,
I
that's
like
a
that.
really important distinction.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll actually share the framework with you now because I know we've been kind of dancing around
Okay,
it. So it's
Get to the good
it's
stuff.
3 phases that must go in order. And the first is familiarity. We have to feel like we recognize somebody. And this is where physical proximity, but it can also be online. And I actually have a specific story for this that I'll share, which is how I share this story in the book is in 2018, I went on my first international trip to Spain.
Ooh.
And if you've ever traveled out of the country for the first time, you know that everything is so different and feels so foreign and unknown, and our brains are actively looking for something that we recognize.
That
And so
familiarity.
that's familiarity. So when I would walk around Spain, the number of times I'd have to do double takes because I thought I saw somebody that I recognized. Here in my home life, that might happen twice a year, maybe, right? Multiple times a day. I'm like, oh, why are they here? Right. And it was never somebody that I recognized, right? It's just because my brain was looking for something that felt familiar so strongly in that environment that any person that resembled somebody I knew flagged.
because you're in a completely foreign place
Because
with
you're in a
just
completely
the environment,
Seeking
unknown.
some kind of
everything.
safety mechanism somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
culminated in I was, I'm from Michigan. I went to the University of Michigan, which is famous for their big Block M logo. And walking around Ann Arbor, which is where the university is, people wearing University of Michigan apparel and wearing that logo is ubiquitous. Like it might as well be camouflage. It's so common, right? You would never think about it.
Wow.
When I was walking down Barcelona on one of the last days on that trip, across the street, walking the opposite direction, I saw an older gentleman wearing a University of Michigan sweatshirt.
Oh.
In that moment, I didn't speak a word to this guy, didn't know him at all. But in that moment, among everyone else on the street, he's the one I felt safe with.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because there was a
I
common,
know.
you knew there was something like a commonality there.
There was something, I don't know if he was an alumni, if he was a professor, if he was just a fan of the football team. I
Or
could
if you had
sort
a
of
kid there.
juxtapose on him. I could think like, oh, he knows Ann Arbor. He might know my favorite restaurant across from this auditorium, right? He understands things that I also understand. And in that, we have this connection.
I was gonna say, is it like seeking a connection, right? Some sort of connection that,
It's seeking
again, goes
safety.
back to what is familiar to you, safety. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
seeking safety. It's like
Yeah.
we feel seen, we feel safe because this person might have shared values. And it doesn't even have to be true. We just have
Right.
to think it's true, right? This person has shared
Yeah.
values, shared experiences. They can understand where I'm coming from,
That's it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And so this is familiarity. And the best way to do this is to be around people. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be
Mm.
in person. And I'll share a cool story of this. So we all know Mike Dola,
Mhm.
Hmm.
right? Before I ever met him, either directly in communication over chat or in person at RCS, I think was the first time I met him in person, was there was an online Facebook group for trainers. I don't know if either of you are in it. I think it was originally hosted by
No.
John Goodman. There was a
No.
I think it's still around, but it's less big. But it was like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It was like a big Facebook group for all the trainers, and sharing tips and resources and asking questions, and one of those sort of communities. And I was a member of this group, and every time I'd get on Facebook and I'd see the posts across my news feed, under every single post was a comment by Mike Dola.
Yeah.
I think he's talked about this
So-
before where he would just put some random ass shit on there.
And he would either make posts or he would comment on posts. And this now in hindsight
Yeah.
was a big part of why he did so well with Familiarity.
Strategy. Yeah.
His shtick.
But
Yeah.
every post he was on,
Mm.
his name single-handedly popped up on my Facebook newsfeed more than anyone else's name.
Mm.
And that was really interesting because I'd never met him before. I'd never talked to him, didn't know him. But as time went on, like I felt familiar. Like when I first met him in person
Yeah.
2 years ago at RCS, I was like, dude, I feel like I've known you forever because
I
you've
know
been
you.
around
Yeah.
for so long. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, but I don't know you. I'm just kidding. He's not like that. I'm
No, we
kidding.
had
He's
some
not like
conversations
that.
we had talked over Facebook and stuff. But
Yeah.
that highlights a really important point, which is in order to create a sense of familiarity, we have to be around people. But it doesn't mean we have to be
Right.
physically there. That's a strong part of it. And when we talk physically and even digitally, what we're talking about is what researchers have called a third space. I don't know if either of you have heard that term
Third
before.
space. Yeah. I read your book. I know
No,
now.
elaborate, please.
So
I
a
had
third
it.
Those
space.
I
of you
had
who
it
didn't
before.
get to
It
read
was
it.
Yeah.
the actual psychologist's name is escaping me at this particular moment, but they basically made the argument that first space is home. It's where you spend a lot of your time. Second space is work. Sometimes those can be the same now, but then it was you go to the office, you'd spend a lot of your time at work. A third space is a recurring physical location that you visit regularly outside of home and work. Why is this
Right.
important? Because essentially, a colloquial way to think about it is it's a place where you're a regular.
Oh. Okay.
Why is this? Because when you are regularly visiting the same spot with other people regularly visiting the same spot, you spend a lot of time around them,
Right.
right? Even more relevant for us, even if you may not have a social third space, the gym can be a third space. How many of us go to a gym or have gone to a gym? Most people go around the same time every day, right? They get into a routine and you see the same people there every time you go.
Mhm.
And after a while, you start to recognize them. Like you can point them out of a crowd if you saw them outside of the gym because you're used to seeing them every day at the gym.
Mhm.
And third spaces are powerful because they allow us to be around the same people enough. Again, 250 hours for casual friendships, 200 hours for close friendships. It allows us to be around the same people long enough to start to accrue that time with them where conversations naturally evolve,
Right.
right? Here's a good
Yeah.
example. There's a gentleman I see again when I go to the gym around the same time every day. I see him there for 2 years. I see him there every day or most of the time when I go. I was out at an event at a buddy who plays in a band was having a show. And I went to the show and we walk into this bar and sitting at the bar is that guy. Never talked to him
Mm.
before. right? Other than just like nods at the gym. But seeing him in that moment, again, in a bar full of people I don't know, this
Now
guy,
you,
the guy wearing the Michigan sweatshirt in Spain,
yeah.
felt safe and felt familiar, and we had a great conversation.
Yeah, because you
Yeah, that makes
everything
sense.
that you just talked about. I love how you do that though, Alex. Like you introduce a like a not a topic, but like the
You
third space,
correlate it
or
with
you know,
this
you were
like an actual
yeah, you
story
bring it
that
back. You
make it
bring it
make
back and
sense.
you tell the story and then you integrate it and it,
Tell a
you
lot
know,
of
it like
stories
the
in the book.
time,
Yeah.
the hours. I know. And that's what I love. And I know I expressed this to you. That is what I loved about the book, that it was one, like the combination of the two. So there was research and sciencey stuff, but more so your storytelling nature and bringing personal experiences. And it's so kind of like reading a novel, but not. And then you bringing those ideas back into each one of those examples, thereby reinforcing the things that were first introduced, that was more sciencey in the beginning part of the book. So yeah, it's see, I did read it.
Yeah. I know you're feeling left out, Carmi. Don't worry. I will send you a copy when we're done today.
That's
But
okay.
yeah.
Now, I
Okay,
have
so
a
that's
question
okay. So
about
we
the
got
third space really quick because
Yeah.
you said it's important. Now, you said physical. Now, what about like for those of us that are mostly digital? Like, how do they tie a third space in digitally?
Good
Like, how can
question.
that
So
work for them?
that would be considered a third space, right?
yeah. So you can. So
Yeah.
to highlight how digital third space is going to work, again, I will share another story, which might be familiar to Doubt because I put it in the book. I have a friend. His name is Ben. He runs a fitness Twitch channel. So he has a very nice home gym, and he basically just streams live while he works out. He's also a big video game nerd, so like he'll do video game stuff and like make references and whatnot. And so I remember one day, this is back in Michigan. One day he asked me to come on the channel with him and just like do a workout and interact with his audience or whatever. And not gonna lie, at first I was a little weirded out. I was like, I'm gonna go into your basement and we're gonna work out while people watch. Seems
It
a bit
is really working out,
seems
right?
a bit
It was.
questionable. And then after he assured
Yes,
me
this
that
is
I
how a
could keep
scary
all of my
movie
clothes
starts.
on, then I was like, okay, I'll do it. And what was interesting is that experience when I was there was everyone's on there by usernames, but he also like he developed relationships with these people. There were regulars
Yeah.
in his chat just shooting the shit, asking questions, making
Right.
jokes, right? They had their own inside joke that went way over my head, but like everyone that was present understood it. And that was the moment for me where I realized like, oh, third spaces can be digital because none of these people are all over the world, all over the country. And they're here under a common interest, interacting regularly with each other and are developing those bonds. I can even go a step further. That same person, I was in his wedding as a groomsman a few years before this. His best man, he had only met in person 3 or 4 times because they played video games together for 15 years.
Wow.
They happened to live a few hours
That's
apart, they discovered much later, like pretty far into their relationship playing video games together. But them getting online and being in those chat rooms together, probably talking shit to each other most of the time.
Yeah.
Over so many years led to this relationship where they felt close to each other and they felt like they understood each other. So much so that he was the best man in his wedding.
Yeah. That makes sense. So you can.
So digital third
Okay, so
spaces can be very powerful.
yeah, I would say that even like for us as coaches, like when Ram hosts his coaching calls, it's mostly the same people. So that becomes like a digital third space for us.
100%.
Us
Right.
resorting to our WhatsApp chat thread, and the group chat, that's a digital shared space. So that's what I basically was trying to figure out. Like, does that count? Because
100%. 100%. So familiarity, and a lot of the research is like physical proximity is a big part of it. And there's really no, like, if you had the option to do both, of being physically in the vicinity of others is going to be more powerful. It's going to happen faster. It's
course.
going to work better.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that these digital third spaces can't work equally as well. We just have to interact regularly with the same people long enough
And
develop that sense of familiarity.
the time. Yeah. Okay. So that's the first part of the
That's
framework.
the first
yes?
stage. Is just we have to feel familiar and sort of safe around people, comfortable.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes
And
sense.
then
Once you've
our
accomplished
second.
that, Then you sort of graduate to the second stage, which is likability. We have to actually like being around these people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's a
Shocker,
pain with
right? We have
that
to
one.
like our friends. But how that happens is interesting because again, it's easier when we're children because everyone's doing the same stuff. We're all through. No one has a personality when they're a child, so they're just liking what everyone else likes, right? So it's easy.
Speak for yourself.
Um,
That was a
Yeah.
trendsetter.
well, so you'll remember when I talk about in the book the facade of average. Do you
Yeah.
remember that in chapter 10? Which is that for you, Carmi, when we're going through high school in particular, no one knows who they are as a person yet.
Right.
No.
Most of us don't know who we
Yeah.
are. And the result of that is there's this push to just be in the center where we're like the majority rules. We can't
Yeah.
not be like, we have to be into what everyone else is into, but we can't be into it more than anyone else. We have to like,
You have
do
to be
this
status
delicate.
quo. Like you want to be
You have to
in.
be status quo. Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
because
Right.
no one knows who they are and they're all looking to everyone else to figure it out. So because everyone's looking to
Right.
everyone else and no one knows, it's just like everyone becomes the same person.
It's like yeah.
Um, And
It's so
so it's
funny
not
'cause you
till
talk about it, I'm like,
later when we
huh.
start to break out of that shell, hopefully, not everyone does, but hopefully we
Yeah.
break out of that and start to discover who we actually are. And of that then starts to reveal what our values actually are. This is the biggest part about liking somebody. It's not about, agreeing on everything. It's not about having exactly the same interests as everyone else, but it's about having shared values and a curiosity to understand these people, to care enough to understand them.
Mm.
And so that's what when we don't understand this, that's what can make taking this leap into likability, even though we're around people as adults, hard because we're sort of operating from the old system of, I have to like everything this person likes.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But we're all suddenly grown into very different people and we have different life experiences and we're at different stages of life. And so that's just really hard to find. But when we understand our values and we start to understand how to identify those shared values in people, we can, even if it's not the same surface level interests. I have friends where we have opposite tastes in music. Like I hate when they're in charge of music because it sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't prevent us from being
No.
friends because there's so many other things that we are connected on. And so then that raises the question, how do we actually start to figure that out? And the best solution for this is we have to just be curious about other people.
Mm-hmm.
We have to figure out
Yeah,
it's
a really good word. Curious. Yeah.
And there are some practical things that I share in the book that you can do. One of the things I call micro signals, which is in some cases we can showcase our interests as sort of a billboard for what we're into. So like if you think of wearing a t-shirt with your favorite band on it.
Right.
Or you have a sticker on your laptop cover that's like your favorite TV show or your favorite quote, meme, your favorite meme from a
Like
TV
dropping
show.
little Easter eggs.
Exactly. Then it provides a little bit of a bat signal for like, hey, I'm into this. So someone else who's into it can be like, oh, you like that band too? And then it starts sort of the process of that.
Yeah, I've noticed like since getting tattoos and stuff too, like I was in Florida here and I made so many conversations with just so many different people, like random people, security, whatever, like, oh my God, that's so nice. What is that? Like it got the conversation flowing and or started and then flowing, which was kind of cool. So,
Yeah.
Tattoo people love to do that. People do that to me all the time. They're like, oh, they're so dainty and cute. Like, what do they stand for? And like we get into like deep conversations about it. So yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah.
And so what's interesting about that too, and I'm glad you said that, is these micro signals on a surface level just show like, oh, I have tattoos. You also have tattoos. We have something in common we can talk about. But in many cases, and this is going one step further, it also creates a perception of our personality. There's a certain type of person. Again, it doesn't have to be real, but it's perceived. We call this perceived similarities, which is in my brain, there's a certain type of person that gets a tattoo. And if I have a tattoo, I'm that type of person, right? So if I see someone else with a tattoo, they must also be the type of person to get a tattoo, and we're similar.
Right.
So I'm probably going to get along with them.
Right.
Again, that comfort
Fair.
and that familiarity again.
100%.
Yeah.
right?
All of it
So
coming
it's
back.
basically the
Yeah.
second phase is just refining the first. The first created the initial comfortability and safety. Like, I recognize
Yep.
this person. This is now going the step further of, okay, do I actually enjoy them? Do we have things in common that
Right.
create this shared bond? And then once we accomplish that, we go into the third phase, which is the most important and also the most difficult, which is vulnerability,
Mm.
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is really where
100%.
connection happens. This is where we
Yep.
start to actually care about people.
Right.
Right. And so our surface,
Totally
what we
makes
were talking
sense.
about
Yeah.
earlier, our surface level friendships, our fun friends, whatever, they might just do those first two stages and never make it to vulnerability. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Because vulnerability is hard. It's exposing ourselves to people
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
giving them
Because
essentially
now it's
power
like, oh
over
my
us.
God, what are they going to think? I look crazy, or what are they to think about me? That's always,
Yeah.
because I mean, I've told down, like, I have the people where I'm not going to share that shit with because it's not that I'm worried about what they think. It's just, I don't know what they're going to do with that.
What you just said, Alex, afraid of being
Yeah.
like, what can they use?
We're,
Yeah.
we're
What is
trust,
that
we have to
information?
trust someone to hold our pain and not use it against us.
Yeah, but I've been see
Oh, yeah.
part of my
Yeah.
problem is I'm jaded because I've trusted people with being vulnerable, and it was almost used as it was weaponized against me, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's unfortunate in that when people are trash, that can,
Learning.
yeah.
But I didn't
Yeah.
let it hold me
But
down because now
yeah,
I got
yeah.
Dal.
But yeah, the vulnerability piece. Yeah. And you're right. You know what? Like what you said, preface that it has to happen in this order. There it is. That is why, because you cannot be vulnerable unless those two first phases have taken place and kind of you
Right.
figured things out and gone through that process. Then and only then do we get to that place where we can share those things and, and then form those deeper connections and relationships. So
100%. And there's
yeah.
a couple things about vulnerability I want to talk about because I know it can be complex and very nuanced. There's two concepts I talk about in the book that are really important to think about vulnerability. One is what I call strategic vulnerability, which is, okay, we know
Mhm.
that in order to really connect, we have to share sort of these deepest parts of ourselves. But how do we actually do that? Because sometimes we can
Mhm.
get in our own heads. We can fear like, oh, we're being overbearing. We're sharing too much. We're
Mm.
oversharing, right? Because the key
Yeah.
with
I'm Java
vulnerability is,
dumping on them.
exactly. Well, the challenge is when we have a desire to share this with people, right? It creates this sort of
Mhm.
shared lived
Mhm.
experience. And all the research shows that like the most connecting thing is going through something together.
For sure.
And so the challenge is we can be eager to want to get to that point with somebody and want to share that. Not
Mhm.
everyone. Some people can be much more reserved and much more cautious about sharing it. And then we have sort of the quote unquote oversharers who just will, at the first sight of connection, will be like,
Vomit.
this is it. We're going to
Yeah.
do it. Right.
They're like, so when I was
And-
3, this has happened to
yeah.
me,
And that
like at the gate, and you're like, whoa.
100%. And if you've ever experienced the receiving end of that, it's very jarring.
Right.
It's very
Yeah,
overwhelming because you're like, I
Right.
wasn't ready to carry this. And now you're putting it
Right.
on
you're
me.
like, this is heavy very fast.
And so
Yeah.
strategic vulnerability is this idea of understanding when it's appropriate to share those moments,
Okay.
right? And it's one where one of the main things I talk about is that it's relevant to the conversation,
Right.
right?
That's important, yeah.
Makes
And what
sense.
does
Yeah.
that look like and what does that mean? It could mean, for example, you're with a friend and, you have a good relationship with, you've been spending time with them, you like them, etc. And then maybe because it can be a question of like who goes first with vulnerability, right? Like who's going to be the first person to
Mhm.
share?
Mhm.
What's going to happen? And so maybe you feel like you're ready to trust them with information. And maybe they bring up like a celebrity breakup or something, right? Like, oh, did you see? Maybe that's something you talk about. And they're like, oh, did you
Mm.
see so and so's divorcing so and so after X number of years or whatever? Like, that's crazy, you know?
Mhm.
And you might, in that moment, find the opportunity to share maybe a bad breakup that you had in your past that really defined a period of your life and who you were. That's an example
Relevance.
of
Yeah.
Yeah.
being relevant, right? Like it was already a topic on the
Right.
table. You segued into something personal about yourself with someone that you trusted. That's
Yeah.
one where like the receiver of that's not going to be like, where the did that come from?
Fuck
Yeah.
did that come from?
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
strategic vulnerability is one thing I talk about. The other one is a concept called empathetic balance. And this is where
Right.
I think vulnerability
Okay.
can fall apart.
Mm.
We can think of empathetic balance as two things. Whenever we're being vulnerable, It can be in a positive light, sharing our goals, our aspirations, our biggest dreams, our desires, etc. And it can be negative, pain, trauma, bad past experiences, etc. It's important to understand that negative vulnerability drains energy. We all know this. We all feel it intuitively,
Mm-hmm.
right? So empathetic balance is the understanding that we have to balance the account of negative energy and positive energy. We all can think of a friend who like we might be vulnerable with, but they're always just dumping their problems. And then it can
Mm.
start to feel like we're a therapist or we're just their dumping
Right.
ground for venting about things. And they never share anything
Yeah.
positive
Right. Yep.
about those,
Yeah.
right? So when we think about being vulnerable with our friends, understanding this concept is really powerful because it makes sure that we keep things level. We don't overwhelm anyone with just being a negative Nancy, right? We're sharing
Mm-hmm.
good things, but we're also sharing bad things, and we're able to go back and
Both
forth,
ways with it. Yeah. Yeah.
right? The other side of
Mm.
empathetic balance is that both people are contributing.
Yes. It's
That's
reciprocal
hard for
for
some
sure.
people though, because I had
It is
one
hard.
like
And so
that,
one key
and
thing I
I'm
want
like,
to
oh
point
my
out
god.
is it's
Yeah.
totally normal that when you share, say for example, you're in a newer friendship and you share something vulnerable and you're the first person to do so. It is normal for that to not be immediately reciprocated.
Right.
Yeah, because people work on their own timelines, and sometimes it's,
Right.
they might not be comfortable discussing it over like text messaging, for example, or they might feel a little bit more able to comfortable to do it over a video chat, or maybe they'd rather do it in person, or whatever the case may be, right? So
Exactly.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
understanding that.
don't like rule it out. Don't rule it
Right.
out right away.
No, but if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
in and they're trauma dumping on you and only
Yes.
calling you for like the negative stuff
Yes.
and you're
That's
drained
Then
every
yes.
single time after, I'm like,
yes.
hard stop. Hold
Yeah, yeah.
on.
And
Yeah.
this is a good thing to be aware of too is in both sides, right? Like if someone is only sharing their negative stuff with you and is never asking anything of you, or
Hmm.
you don't feel comfortable sharing anything, or vice versa, right? Then that also is a good question. Is this friendship reciprocal,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because some of the challenge can be that we don't like friendships can be one-sided in terms of their strength. We can feel really close to someone and they not feel super close to us.
Uh-oh, did we lose Dal?
I don't know. It looks like we lost Dell.
Oh, just keep going. It's okay. She'll hop back in.
Yeah. Okay. Now we can talk about all the good stuff that she's gonna miss out on. Well, then the other thing I was gonna say about this, so familiarity, likability, and vulnerability. And the powerful thing about this is it doesn't end. It's cyclical. So once you've shared vulnerability with somebody, now you feel even more familiar with them. You
Oh,
feel
okay.
safer, more comfortable. That presents more opportunities to find other ways that you like each other and have shared values because now you're disclosing more about each other, which leads to then other opportunities to be vulnerable about other things.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes sense because it's like a build and it's always ever evolving and ever growing. So that actually makes complete sense. Sorry, let me just make sure it's not her. So go ahead, keep
Yeah.
going.
And so this consistently goes on. And the challenge is we have to continually put effort into it because we can think of it like a living, breathing organism, this relationship. And so most of the time friendships will fall apart because we stop investing into it. And this at some phase falls apart. And sometimes it could be no fault of our own. We stop putting effort into it, but it could be because we moved to opposite sides of the country. It could be because major life changes, having a kid when your friend doesn't, major job change, major relationship status change. Any number of things can sort of detract from being able to invest in this or finding things to have that shared relationship with. And so at any point, by not putting effort into it, it can deteriorate no matter how strong the friendship is.
Now, would you say though that that's kind of sometimes maybe a natural progression for some friendships? Circling back
100%.
to you saying like some things only last 7 years, because I do believe that. I do believe that some people come into my life for a short period of time to help me grow or teach me something, but they're not meant to be there for forever.
100%. Yeah, yeah. And we have to think about that too. We were talking about with my own personal transformation, right? Like the metamorphosis of who we become during those different chapters is we meet people in those chapters who are right for us in that version.
Yeah.
and we transform into something else, and they transform into something else, and those are different paths, then we just don't have the things in common anymore that created
That's
that
fair.
friendship in the first place. And so that is totally normal. So it's called friendship pruning, which is we sort of shed friendships as we go through life, and it is a
I think you and
totally
I kinda
normal.
talked about that when you put a poll. I think you put a poll out, like, prior to writing
Yeah,
your book, and I had answered it, and you had asked me questions, so yes. Because I
yeah,
mean, like I said, I've gone through a whole different evolution of myself also, and, like, I also honor, like, all my different versions, and it's so funny because going back to what you said at the beginning is I ran into some like, I'll run into some high school people, and they're like, "Oh my god," and I'm like, "Oh my god," like, I wanna run because I know, like, the version of me in high school was absolutely crazy, and I'm just like, I am
yeah.
not that person anymore, but they're probably not even thinking that, and if they are, then so be it, but, like, I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, run, run."
It yeah, so it's and that's the other thing too, is if we find someone who's in our life and goes through all of those transformations because our shared values are so aligned that doesn't matter
Oh,
what life things we go through, then like that's truly special. Like to have a friend that can go the distance, essentially.
that's yeah, I have my friend from high school, but, like, it's very like, she's there, I'm here, like, we check in every once in a while, but it's really not, like, a whole, like, depth thing, but if I were to ever go to her with something from the past, it would make her
Yeah,
giggle, chuckle, and cackle, so
100%. The other thing I want to share about this framework is because we had alluded to earlier about it takes 200 hours for close friendships to form, 200 hours of interaction. And hopefully
Mhm.
Doll's okay. She in
Yeah, she says that it cut out, and I told her to try to get back in, but she said just keep going, and then we'll
okay.
we'll wrap it if she can't make it back in.
Um, there was a psych researcher that did a study where they put two strangers in a room and they gave them a list of 36 questions. It was three sets of 12 questions.
It's a lot of
Oh,
questions.
I write about this in the book, yeah. And the whole experiment was these two strangers in an empty room together go back and forth answering these questions. And what they found was really interesting, which is by the time it took about an hour and a half, by the time those strangers left the room after answering all 36 questions, they reported feeling closer to that stranger than their lifelong best friend.
Oh,
And that's
that's
really interesting
interesting.
because they were together for an
That's
hour and a half
interesting.
and they felt
Wow.
closer than anyone else.
Is that because of the proximity?
It's in part because of the proximity, but it's more because of the questions that they were asked. So it's a pretty well-known set of questions now. I think there were big articles about it in all the major publications about like 36 questions to fall in love, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it wasn't designed to be a romantic thing, but it was just like connection and closeness. Um, but when looking at these 36 questions, and I write about this in the book, when looking at these 36 questions, they are a microcosm of this formula. The questions start superficial. It's like if you could have dinner with anyone living or past, who would you choose to have dinner with, as an example? Right.
Mhm.
And then it goes into progressively deeper questions of like, what's your biggest childhood trauma? Or if you could tell your parents something you wish they would have done differently, what would you tell them? Right. And each set of 12 questions, there's three of them, each set of them is essentially a mini traversing of this friendship formula. The questions start superficial, they get to like interest based stuff, and then they get
Uh-huh.
a little bit deeper. And then each set all in gets slightly deeper as you go. And so what they effectively did is they found a way to expedite this connection process.
Oh.
Whereas if you sat down and you answered it, it's a great exercise to do, by the way. I do share all the questions in the book, and if you want, I can send them to you. They're great to do with friends. They're great to do with partners too. It's phenomenal.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
bet. Tell my
yeah,
husband now.
it's as a side note, when I first met my girlfriend, we were doing long distance, and she didn't realize at the time. But every night when we talk on the phone, I'd ask her one of these questions,
Oh,
and then
you were doing the project on her, she didn't know?
I never like told her where I got the questions from. But then when she eventually read the draft of the book, and she got to that part, she was like,
She's like,
"Motherfucker,
"Motherfucker, you were
you
psyching
tricked
me."
me." Yeah. So it is a pretty cool exercise to go through, and it's really fun to do. So I'll send you the questions. But
Okay, for sure.
What this really highlights, though, is that there are ways to expedite that 200 hours. Like, it's not a hard rule of that you need 200 hours under the right
Right.
circumstances with the right vulnerability. And I share a really unique story about this, which I won't get in too much detail here because I'll save it as a surprise for the book. But I was on a solo trip to Portugal and I met some people that quickly became very close to in the span of hours going through things. And there was a number of reasons for that, again, related to this formula and sort of quickly going through all the stages in that unique environment. So there are ways that we see that this formula works on its own timeline and it can be
Mhm.
expedited under the right circumstances. But regardless of how long it takes, each piece has to be there and it
Why
goes
would
in.
anybody go and expedite? Like, in what circumstance
I wouldn't
would you
necessarily
say?
say that people should search to expedite the process because I think that risks
Okay.
a lot of things, right?
Right.
I think
Okay.
it's just important to recognize that it can, because the
Okay.
challenge,
Okay.
I think the point of it is to say that like it's not a one size fits all thing. Because a lot of people hear I need 200 hours with
What do
people
you
to
mean
feel
it
close to them.
depends? Context
I know,
matters?
right? So, because people hear
Gosh.
200 hours, you need to be with someone 200 hours to create a close friendship, and they're like, "Well, shit, I don't have 200 hours. I'm working 80 hours a week. I got kids
I
at
think they're
home. Like,
overanalyzing it. Because for
you
me,
know,
I want it to be a natural progression, but I see where you're saying where you can have it be a natural progression, but almost do like a hybrid program with it. Kind of what you did with your girlfriend is where you had the natural progression, but you kind of expedited it slowly
yeah."
with implementing those little things. So, okay,
And
fair.
I think the other important thing of understanding. So again, you're right. Context is important, and that's a big thing for me, and that's a big thing existing in this book, which is the reason for sharing the moments where it was expedited is important to see all the different ways this formula works. Right? It's like it
Yep.
can work the natural progression and it can go on its own timeline and take its time, and you're going to go through all three stages. Even if you happen to be in a situation where by nature or by design it's expedited, you're still going through all three phases. It's just happening on a faster timeline.
Okay.
And so the important thing is for because what I would like people to do when they read this book is not only feel prepared to actually implement the steps in their own life to make friends and reinforce friendships and have a great social life and sense of belonging, but also to understand how the mechanism works.
I think it's important for people to know, but I also think that, you know, people also need to understand it requires self awareness and you
Right.
being really confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. Like, you don't have to know everything, but like, if you're over there with a whole bunch of unhealed things, not really knowing who you are and where your place is in the world, you're going to also have a problem with this formula. But maybe the
100%.
formula will also help you figure out who you are.
So I'm glad you bring that up because that's a big thing that I say in the start of the book, which I'm glad you touched on, which is this does require self awareness to do this process. Not
Yeah.
only with the formula
Because
itself,
old me
but I
would
talk.
not be able to do this.
No, 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 no. It's because a lot of this book is informed by. I mean, it took me a year to write, but it really took me 15 years to figure out all the concepts of
Yeah. Your
through it.
lived experiences. Yeah.
Right. And so I try to help expedite that process in terms of like, all right, if we don't have the self awareness, in later chapters of the book, I talk about the various skills we might need in terms of like holding a
Okay.
conversation and getting over social anxiety and all the things that do to sort of practically help apply the formula. Because I don't want to just leave people with it and be like, okay,
Right.
good luck. But it does require sort of the understanding of how we show up in spaces and what we're looking for in friendships
Yeah.
and sort of all of that. But to your point too, right? The through line of this book, which I say in the introduction, is it's a book about friendship, but it's also a book about finding out who you are.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that. You're very like, you preface it, you're telling everybody what to expect. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Because it pushes people out of their comfort zone with some of the skills. It challenges some of their beliefs that they have about friendship and the role of friendship, like with the different roles and not needing just one person to do everything and
Mhm.
all that. And through that, people will learn about
Okay.
themselves.
So when is this book gonna come out? I know that I'm gonna get a sneaky peeky on it. When or can we expect
I don't
it?
have a release date
Stay
yet.
tuned to people.
We're still in pretty early stages because what I'm sending
Okay.
you is essentially the first completed draft. So we're in the editing stage. We're in the sort
Okay.
of,
That's fair.
you know, figuring out publishing around stuff like that. But
Okay.
um, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Okay, that's fair. Now, if our listeners have questions for you, where can they reach you to find you?
Yeah,
If you're open to
absolutely.
discussing the formula, if
I
they have
I
questions
would
about
say,
it.
yeah, two things. The first is definitely follow me on Instagram, which is underscore
Okay.
18fit underscore
Okay.
ATEAMFIT
I'll
underscore.
make sure everything's linked for
Um,
you.
Feel free to DM me questions, friendship, especially, but also fitness related, anything like that, psych stuff. But if people are interested in the book and they want to get updates and they want to get sample chapters and they want to kind of stay in the know for when it's released, they can join the wait list for the book at 18fit.com/friendship formula book. But I will send you that link.
Okay.
So that's
I'll make everything all linkable on the show notes. Okay, well, I want to be respectful of your time. This was an amazing conversation, so I'm so grateful to have you. Unfortunately, Dal could not make it back on. So we'll just run with whatever we got. Will we see you in Vegas?
yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for your time, everybody. We'll see you guys next time. Sorry Dal cut out, and we thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.